I, 25-year-old female, have just moved into a neighborhood a couple of weeks ago, and so far it has been very peaceful. From the neighbors that have come up to me, everyone has been very friendly and welcoming, which I really appreciate since I'm not from around the town. I have noticed that some neighbors have been having frequent parties the last couple of weeks, but I chalked it up to it being celebrations since I know one neighbor's daughter just graduated high school and July 4th is coming up. I have been to some of these parties to get to know the other neighbors better, and one person who really stands out to me is this one neighbor, Melinda. At a neighbor's party, she came up to me and introduced herself, and we talked for a while. This is when I learned about the newest neighbor party. Apparently, the newest neighbor is supposed to throw a grand party showing off their home and entertain the neighborhood as a whole thing. Melinda told me since I was the newest neighbor, it was my duty to. I thought Melinda was joking when she told me this, as it didn't make sense to me, and I laughed. This seemed to have made Melinda a little angry, as she said she was serious, and it was a tradition in the neighborhood and that I had 2 weeks to host a party. This was 2 weeks ago. Yesterday was the day I was supposed to do this tradition, but I happily stayed in bed. Melinda and a couple of neighbors came and rang the doorbell, but I ignored them and enjoyed binge-watching childhood shows. I decided to go outside today, and Melinda came up to me furious, saying that I didn't do the tradition and that I was being a bad neighbor. The thing is, however, I asked some other people about this tradition, and they have heard some people do it, but mostly never really mentioned it to be a recurring thing that each new person in the neighborhood should do. I told Melinda that I wouldn't be throwing a party anytime soon, as I didn't feel comfortable with the thought of people coming into my home, let alone me having to entertain them. Melinda got angry, saying that the neighborhood is like a big family, and stormed off. I let it go, but the neighbors that were with Melinda at my house that night have been telling me I should have just done the party and that I'm leaving a bad impression. I think my reason is justified, but I'm not really sure. So am I the idiot? Thank you for all the comments and suggestions. I also see where I could have told Melinda that I wasn't comfortable, but from the 1 to 2 interactions I've had with her, it sounds like she wouldn't have cared regardless. But I don't want to assume. A lot of suggestions were very insightful and funny. After I posted this, I went to sleep and decided to go out today. I didn't bump into Melinda or any of her friends, so I'm not sure about her. However, some neighbors have offered to help me continue to move in by bringing boxes in. One of these neighbors, John, has been living here for a while, and he told me he's not fond of Melinda, and from what he has seen, some neighbors just try to avoid her or put up with her for the sake of it. Someone messaged me asking how moving in was going, and it has been going good, but hopefully my mattress comes in soon so I can stop sleeping on the couch. It's rough. If anything crazy happens or if Melinda comes up to me, I'll let you all know. But that's really it for now, since it's only been a new day. Now for an update, Melinda came up to me. I thought since she didn't bother me yesterday, today would be the same. But it wasn't. I got out of my car and I saw Melinda ringing my doorbell like crazy and knocking hard. I got out of my car and asked her what she was doing, and she looked at me, and she just looked angry and demanded an apology. I asked her an apology for what, and she's saying that I'm going around asking people about the tradition, and if I feel so highly about it, that I should just do it like everyone else has. I think she's crazy. I told her to get off my property and to leave me alone. I just left her outside because I didn't want to deal with her. But I heard something fall outside and go to check a few minutes later, and she kicked my plant. I guess we're in a war thing now? But who kicks plants out of rage? Now for an update, 4th of July. Hello everyone, happy 4th. Melinda is crazy and I'm calling it here and now. Since today is the 4th, everyone is having a big gathering in the street like a block party. I went to the store to get things for it, such as hot dogs and burgers and some snacks for kids and adults because I couldn't cook anything personally. The party is still happening. I'm writing this from the bathroom. We had all of our stuff labeled so everyone knew who to thank, and the party was going good until I saw Melinda at my area of the food, and she's breaking some open. I would be fine with this if there weren't already hot dogs and hamburgers from other neighbors already being cooked. But the fact she skipped over about 3 other people's stuff to open mine, I went to her and asked her what she was doing, and I guess she didn't expect me to see because she started going on a whole spew about me getting the wrong brand of hot dogs and stuff and how I need to think about the neighborhood. It was soubrette, and everyone brought those types. Before I could even say anything, She just walked off. And luckily, a neighbor saw my stuff open and offered to take it and put it in her freezer until it's needed. And I'm in her house currently typing this. I feel like I'm in some weird TV show, like the comments have been saying. This personal vendetta stuff is weird and annoying, and it's over a home welcoming party. She's insane. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot trying to force someone to have a party that they are not comfortable having in their own home is rude as heck. Ignore her and the other ones trying to pressure you. None of them matter. It is not your job to do as they say, and you do not have to impress anyone, least of all them. I would get security cameras if I were you, the kind that you control with your phone, so you can see who is at your door and around your whole house. Hopefully, you will not have to call the cops on her. Enjoy your new home. Comment 2. Not the idiot look. I love a neighborhood with a good, friendly community. It really helps make the world a better place when people are kind to each other and help out. But some people, like Melinda, take it way too far. A person should host a party and open their home because they want to, not because they have been told to do so. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all this. So after the 4th of July fiasco, things got even weirder. The day after the block party, I woke up to find a note slipped under my door. It was from Melinda, of course. She wrote that she was disappointed in me and that I needed to make things right by hosting the party. She even gave me a list of dates that would work for her. I was so frustrated, but I decided to ignore it and go about my day. Later that afternoon, I ran into John while taking out the trash. He asked if I had received any love letters from Melinda. I showed him the note, and he just shook his head, saying that Melinda has always been a bit of a control freak. He told me about how she once tried to organize a neighborhood watch without consulting anyone and ended up alienating half the block. It was comforting to know that I wasn't the only one who found her behavior overbearing. But then, something unexpected happened. I got a call from my landlord. He said that he had received a complaint about me from Melinda, claiming that I was disruptive and uncooperative. I was shocked. I explained the situation to him, and he seemed to understand. But he also mentioned that Melinda had a lot of influence in the neighborhood and that it might be wise to keep the peace. This put me in a tough spot. I didn't want to give in to her demands, but I also didn't want to risk my living situation. That evening, I decided to talk to some other neighbors to get their take on things. I went over to Sarah's house, a sweet older lady who had always been kind to me. She invited me in for tea, and we talked about Melinda. Sarah told me that Melinda had a history of being difficult and that most people just went along with her to avoid conflict. She also mentioned that Melinda had some personal issues that might explain her behavior, but she didn't go into detail. As I was leaving Sarah's house, I ran into another neighbor, Tom. He was a bit more blunt about the whole situation. He said that Melinda was a bully and that I shouldn't let her push me around. He also mentioned that there was a neighborhood meeting coming up and that it might be a good opportunity to address the issue publicly. This gave me something to think about. The next day, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I was walking, I noticed Melinda in her yard, talking to a couple of other neighbors. I tried to avoid eye contact, but she saw me and waved me over. Reluctantly, I walked over to her. She started talking about the party again, but this time she seemed more desperate than angry. She said that the neighborhood was like a family to her and that she just wanted to keep traditions alive. I could see that there was more to her insistence than just being a control freak. Later that night, I got a text from John. He said that he had heard from a reliable source that Melinda was going through a tough time. Apparently, her husband had left her a few months ago, and she was struggling to cope. This made me see her in a different light. Maybe her obsession with the party was her way of trying to maintain some semblance of control in her life. I decided to take Tom's advice and bring up the issue at the neighborhood meeting. When the day of the meeting arrived, I was nervous but determined. I explained my side of the story and how I felt pressured by Melinda. To my surprise, several neighbors spoke up in my support. They shared their own experiences with Melinda and how they felt bullied by her as well. It was a relief to know that I wasn't alone. After the meeting, Melinda approached me. She looked defeated, but also somewhat relieved. She apologized for her behavior and admitted that she had been taking out her personal frustrations on me. She explained that the party tradition was something her late mother had started and she felt obligated to keep it going. I felt a pang of sympathy for her and told her that I understood. In the days that followed, things started to calm down. Melinda kept her distance, and I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt since moving in. I even started to get closer to some of the other neighbors. John and I began hanging out more, and Sarah invited me over for tea regularly. It felt like I was finally becoming part of the community. But then something unexpected happened. I received an anonymous letter in my mailbox. It was a photocopy of an old newspaper article about a scandal involving Melinda's family. Apparently, her father had been involved in some shady business deals, and it had caused a lot of tension in the neighborhood years ago. The letter suggested that Melinda's behavior was a way of trying to redeem her family's reputation. This put me in a difficult position. I didn't want to bring up old wounds, but I also felt that the neighbors deserved to know the truth. I decided to keep the letter to myself for now and focus on building positive relationships with my neighbors. As I reflect on everything that's happened, I realize that moving into a new neighborhood is never easy. There are always going to be challenges and difficult people to deal with. But I've also learned that it's important to stand up for yourself and not let others push you around. And sometimes understanding where someone is coming from can make all the difference. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to be my family's doormat on vacation? On a one-week family vacation, my immediate family isn't here. My dad got me a room at the hotel where we were all staying, so I could have my own room. My cousin, 32 years old, female, I'll call her Joe, her husband, I'll call him Bill, and their 2 kids had the room next to mine. On the second day, my cousin and I wanted to go to the beach. Joe asked if she could stay in my room because her husband and kids were disturbing her rest. I said okay and gave her my room card. We were gone for the whole day, and when we returned, Joe was still in my room. She had been watching TV and had actually rented a movie. I was angry because it was my dad's credit card on the hotel bill. She apologized and left. The next day, she asked to use my room again, promised not to rent a movie, and I agreed. When I returned, Bill was in my room, lying on my bed. I wasn't mad, but I also didn't like it. I asked them to leave because I needed to get ready since we were all going out to eat. We're at the restaurant eating, joking around, having a nice time when my Aunt Joe's mom, the official adult of the family vacation, said, and I quote, "You'll be sleeping in Joe's room with the kids so your elder sister and her husband can have some privacy." I honestly didn't think she was talking to me until my uncle snapped at me asking if I was deaf. I looked around. Everyone was looking at me, waiting for my okay or yes ma'am. But I said no. The vibe of our table changed. My aunt basically ordered me to hand over my room card. Again, I said no. She then said it was wrong of me to expect adults to be sleeping in the same room with their kids when another child has a free room. I'm 22, but I'm also the youngest. Sorry, I'm 24. Again, I said no and asked her to ask someone else. At this, everyone turned on me asking why I needed a room to myself. What was I doing by myself that would make me not want to share with kids? It was so uncomfortable I left. The next day we had plans to go to the theme park, but they all left without me. I called my cousins, but they wouldn't pick up. I texted and was left on read. I called my dad about this, and he told me not to worry. He'll handle it. During dinner that night, I was called a snitch, and they said I had run to my dad when I was the one being disrespectful. Then my aunt asked me to leave the table or give my elder sister my room card. It was like a go-to-your-room moment, so I went to my room, called my dad again, and this time he told me to just change rooms to keep the peace. My mom and brother said not to, that they were looking for a free babysitter. Her kids aren't unruly half the time, but I'm not here to babysit. Today, I was left behind again. I don't know. I'm really upset about this, but I also don't want to give in. I'm thinking to just go home, but it's quite expensive to change my ticket. So 3 days left of this. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Do not change rooms. Your room was paid for by your father for you. You are not there to be a babysitter for your cousin's kids. For the rest of your holiday, do not give them the key to your room. You are 22 years old. Go and do the things you want to for the rest of your holiday. You don't need to spend your time with them. It will really annoy them if their so-called punishment, where they are leaving you out, turns out to not be a punishment at all for you. because you are out enjoying yourself. Comment 2. Not the idiot, it's your room, paid for by your family. At 22, you're not a kid, you're an adult. If your cousins were also adults and want privacy, they can pay for a separate room. Since they won't/can't, they're clearly not mature adults able to put on their big boy pants. You don't need to go with other people to have fun. If you want to go to the theme park and your extended family are being children, just call a taxi Uber and go. Now for the update, thanks for reading my last post. So here's what happened over the past month. After that awful dinner, I decided to stick it out for the remaining 3 days of the vacation. I kept to myself mostly, avoiding any more confrontations. On the last day, my dad called me and said he had booked me an earlier flight home. I was relieved and left without saying goodbye to anyone. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Back home, things were tense. My dad was supportive, but my mom and brothers were still upset about how I was treated. They suggested I take some time to myself and maybe even talk to a therapist. I thought it was a good idea and started seeing someone. It helped me process everything that happened and made me realize I needed to set better boundaries with my family. A week after I got back, Jo called me. She apologized for everything and said she felt terrible about how things went down. She admitted that she and Bill were having problems and that she was using my room as an escape. She asked if we could meet up and talk. I agreed, hoping we could clear the air. We met at a coffee shop and Jo opened up about her marriage. She said Bill had been distant and that they were arguing a lot. She felt overwhelmed with the kids and needed a break. I felt bad for her, but also told her that it wasn't fair to put me in the middle of it. She agreed and promised to be more considerate in the future. A few days later, my aunt called. She didn't apologize, but said she wanted to clear the air. She explained that she thought I was being selfish and that she was just trying to make things easier for Jo and Bill. I told her that I understood her perspective, but that it wasn't right to treat me the way she did. She didn't seem to get it, but at least I got to say my piece. Then, something unexpected happened. My cousin, who I'll call Mike, reached out to me. He said he heard about what happened and wanted to check in. We hadn't been close growing up, but we started talking more. He shared that he had always felt like the black sheep of the family and that he understood how I felt. It was nice to have someone who got it. Mike and I started hanging out more, and he introduced me to some of his friends. It was a welcome distraction from all the family drama. One night we were talking about our childhoods, and he told me a story that changed everything for me. He said that when he was younger, our aunt had treated him the same way she treated me. She always favored Jo and made him feel like he was less important. It made me realize that this wasn't just about me. It was a pattern of behavior. Hearing Mike's story made me see my family in a new light. I realized that I wasn't the problem and that I needed to stand up for myself more. It was a turning point for me. I decided to set some boundaries and focus on my own well-being. I started spending more time with friends and less time worrying about family drama. I also got a promotion at work, which was a huge confidence boost. Things were looking up, but I knew I still had to deal with my family at some point. A month after the vacation, we had a family gathering for my grandma's birthday. I was nervous about seeing everyone again, but I felt more prepared this time. When I arrived, Jo came up to me and gave me a hug. She said she was glad we talked and that things were getting better with Bill. It was a small step, but it felt good. My aunt, on the other hand, was still cold. She barely acknowledged me, but I didn't let it bother me. I focused on enjoying the time with my grandma and other relatives. Mike was there too, and we stuck together, which made things easier. During the gathering, my uncle pulled me aside. He said he wanted to apologize for snapping at me during the vacation. He admitted that he was stressed and took it out on me. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something. I accepted it and told him I appreciated it. As the night went on, I felt a sense of closure. I knew things wouldn't be perfect, but I felt more confident in my ability to handle family dynamics. I also realized that I had a support system outside of my family, and that made a big difference. Looking back, the vacation was a turning point for me. It forced me to confront some hard truths about my family and myself. I learned the importance of setting boundaries and standing up for myself. I also realized that I wasn't alone and that there were people who understood and supported me. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to cancel my travel plans for my sister's wedding? Sister and fiancé, both in their early 40s, are getting married after many years of dating. This is the first marriage for both of them, but they have always been casual about it. They decided to get married randomly after a conversation with friends, with no proposal. They wanted a courthouse ceremony and just a party with their friends. However, our family has blown this up a bit. It seems to be moving towards a backyard wedding with friends and family. Several months ago, while they were discussing dates, my sister asked me about my availability. As the only family member who lives far away and has 3 young kids, it is difficult for me to pin down specific dates. We talked about my schedule, and I gave her dates that were either a no, maybe, or yes, absolutely. She said she was planning on those yes timeframes anyways, so that was great. A few weeks later, save the dates were sent out via email, and she set a date that fell on one of my maybe weekends. I called and asked her about it, and she explained that they also considered dates with friends, and this was the one that worked for them, so they decided to go ahead with it. The reason I marked it as maybe was because I already had travel plans scheduled. Going back to my hometown with my whole family is no longer an option. It has become a mess to navigate, with some of us going and others not, or flying out on different days. My sister says it's okay and that she wants me there, but she understands. After discussing with my spouse, we decided that it's too difficult and expensive for us to make it work, so we won't be attending. My sister seems fine with it and keeps downplaying the fact that our parents are making a big deal out of it, saying that it's not even a wedding. I'm feeling okay about the decision, but my siblings and parents are absolutely tearing me apart over it. They are guilt-tripping me and accusing me of not caring about family. They want me to cancel my other plans, which I can't get refunded, and spend thousands of dollars to fly my family to this wedding that my sister scheduled when she knew there was a chance I couldn't attend. So Reddit, am I the jerk for skipping this wedding? To add, I'm reading and trying to reply, but there's a lot here. I'm definitely taking away a lot of different things that happened here that might have made me the jerk. The common question is, why did I say maybe if I had plans? That's a valid criticism, but when I said we looked at dates, what I meant was more like general timeframes. It went like this. My sister said they wanted to do it before the weather cools down, leaving us with July/August/September. I told her that July is absolutely nuts for us at work, so we definitely can't go then. August had some weeks that were better than others, so it was a toss-up. September was wide open with 0 conflicts. She had been saying September all along. That was the month. We didn't even discuss specific dates in August because she wasn't considering it as an option at the time. I hung up with the impression that it was going to be in September and that August wasn't even on the radar. I understand why some people think I come across as judgy about their wedding or that I'm trying to make it seem unimportant. That's really not how I feel. I've encouraged her from the start to block out all the family noise and just do what she wants. When I told my dad that my family couldn't make it, he tried to get her to change the date, and I had to tell him to leave her alone and let her do what she wants. She's the one who didn't want to call it a wedding and didn't like that it was turning into a bigger event. She told me many times that they were just trying to make the parents happy by doing a thing. Now I'm starting to wonder if she was being honest with me about the importance of it and my being there. Perhaps she was just trying not to guilt-trip me. She knows that it costs a fortune for us to fly out and that it's a full day of travel in each direction. It's not a casual weekend trip with a 2-hour direct cheap flight. It involves multiple flights and hours of driving to and from the departing and arriving airports, crossing the entire country. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Mild, you're the idiot, because if the plans were already in place and it really isn't workable, then the date should have been a no from you, not a maybe. Nothing in your plans has changed from when you discussed dates, except you've decided it's a mess to navigate. Not even impossible, just a mess. If you weren't willing to navigate the mess, you should have said so from the start. Comment 2. Everyone sucks here. I think you should have been more strict with what maybe meant regarding dates. She picked this because she thought you could work it out to make it, and literally arranged her friends in your schedule for all her people to be there. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post. So after deciding not to attend my sister's wedding, things got even more complicated. My parents and siblings continued to pressure me, and it reached a point where they were calling me almost daily. They kept saying how important it was for the whole family to be there and how it would look if I didn't show up. My mom even went as far as to offer to pay for part of our travel expenses, which was generous but still didn't solve the logistical nightmare of getting my family there. In the midst of all this, my sister called me one evening. She sounded stressed and admitted that our parents were driving her crazy too. She said they were insisting on adding more traditional elements to the wedding, like a formal ceremony and a sit-down dinner, which was the opposite of what she and her fiancé wanted. She confessed that she felt like she was losing control of her own wedding and didn't know how to handle it. I felt really bad for her and offered to help in any way I could, even if it was just moral support. We talked for a long time, and she finally admitted that she did want me there, but she understood why it was hard for me. She said she didn't want to guilt trip me, but was feeling torn between making our parents happy and having the wedding she actually wanted. A few days later, my sister called again with a new plan. She and her fiancé had decided to have a small private ceremony with just a few close friends and then a larger party later in the evening. This way they could keep things simple and still have a celebration with everyone. She asked if there was any way I could make it to the evening party, even if I couldn't be there for the ceremony. I told her I'd think about it and talk to my spouse. After discussing it with my spouse, we decided that I would go alone to the evening party. It would be a quick trip, just for the weekend, and I could manage it without disrupting our other plans too much. I called my sister to let her know, and she was thrilled. She said it would mean a lot to her to have me there, even if it was just for the party. As the wedding day approached, my parents continued to push for more traditional elements, and my sister was getting more and more frustrated. She called me several times to vent, and I tried to be as supportive as possible. I could tell she was struggling to balance her own desires with our parents' expectations. The day of the wedding finally arrived, and I flew out early in the morning. I arrived just in time for the evening party, and my sister was so happy to see me. The party was a lot of fun, and it was great to catch up with family and friends. My parents were still a bit cold towards me, but I tried to ignore it and focus on celebrating my sister's big day. During the party, my sister pulled me aside and thanked me for coming. She said it meant a lot to her, especially given all the drama leading up to the wedding. She also confided in me that she and her fiancé were planning to move to a different city soon, partly to get some distance from our parents. She said they wanted to start fresh and build their life together without all the family pressure. I was surprised but understood where she was coming from. Our parents can be overbearing, and I could see how a fresh start might be appealing. I told her I supported her decision and that I was always here for her, no matter what. As the night went on, I noticed my parents were still giving me the cold shoulder. It was clear they were still upset about my initial decision not to attend the wedding. I tried to talk to them, but they were distant and didn't seem interested in hearing my side of the story. It was frustrating, but I decided to let it go and focus on enjoying the party. The next day I flew back home, feeling a mix of emotions. I was glad I had made it to the party and supported my sister, but I was also frustrated with my parents' continued coldness. It felt like no matter what I did, I couldn't make everyone happy. In the days that followed, I had several conversations with my sister about her plans to move. She seemed excited and hopeful about the future, and I was happy for her. We also talked about our parents and how to handle their expectations moving forward. It was clear that we both needed to set some boundaries to maintain our own sanity. Looking back, I realized that this whole experience had tested my loyalties in ways I hadn't expected. I had to balance my commitment to my own family with my desire to support my sister, all while navigating the expectations of our parents. It wasn't easy, but I felt like I had made the best decisions I could given the circumstances. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.